Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.
Before we get started this week with the show, folks, I want to remind you to check out etsy.com/shop/April's Sensations. That's right, April's Sensations. Pro wrestler, model, cosplayer, writer, April Hunter. You know, she has her own shop on Etsy. It's fantastic, and I can speak from experience. I mean, I've purchased some candles and soaps and what have you from her. Just really, really cool stuff. And with the holidays coming up, for that special someone in your life, including yourself, this is a great time to pick up some of this handcrafted, amazing, made in the USA stuff. We're talking about April's Sensations. If you want to support a pro wrestler and somebody that is really cool, small business owner, you definitely want to check it out. I'm going to give you that website again, folks. That is Etsy. So that's etsy.com/shop/April's Sensations. And let me spell that out. APRILSSCENTSATIONS. April Sensations, baby. I'm telling you, check it out. Let them know the Duke sent you over there. Enjoy yourselves. And now, let's get on with the show.
You're locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke loves wrestling.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad. That's right. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Festivus. All that other good stuff and good stuff. Welcome back to Duke Loves Rasslin, the show about pro wrestling and everything else. As you can hear, I am excited. I am happy. It is Christmas Eve. And I got some good stuff for you this week. You better believe it, baby. Okay? I went through the archives. And I pulled out a couple of my favorite conversations from episodes past. I've dug all the way back to episode 34, okay, with Conrad Thompson. Now, you know him as the podfather these days, but Conrad was getting himself into a little bit of trouble back then, and you're going to hear all about it a little later in the show. I also pulled up the infamous Manny Fernandez episode from week 79. Oh my goodness. I thought I was going to interview Tommy Rich, okay, former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Wildfire Tommy Rich, but he passed the phone to Manny, and Manny ended up saying a bunch of crazy stuff that to this day, a lot of you hit me up and say, man, that Manny Fernandez interview was my favorite. It was so crazy, so wild, some of the stuff he said, including telling Vince McMahon to go F himself. So, which is just incredible. So you're going to hear all of that, plus some fun banter from the Boston Bad Boy and I. You'll hear why the Boston Bad Boy is not allowed on this show anymore, okay? Because the guy just steps out of line too much, disrespects my good friend Vincent Kennedy McMahon too much, okay? That's why he's banned from the show. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, I'm not going to confirm nor deny that he let me know if the Boston Bad Boy ever comes back on this show, then he is going to somehow, some way buy the show and then fire me, even though the show is named Duke Loves Wrestling. So I got to be careful here. I don't want to be on the wrong side of my good friend Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So Boston Bad Boy is out. But you'll hear some of the nonsense and shenanigans that led up to that for sure. In fact, you know something? Let's just jump right in. We're going to start off with Conrad Thompson. Before we get to that, though, shout out to my man, Charlie. Okay, Charlie, he has that business Wicked Twists where he makes fancy keychains and cool things like that. He made me a keychain once that had the big gold belt, so the World Heavyweight Championship, and it said Duke in the middle. It was awesome. So Wicked Twist, if you Google that, check that out. But my man Charlie, it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Charlie. I don't know how you're a Christmas baby. That is incredible. That means you only get one set of gifts. I'm sorry, Charlie. Too bad for you. That's why I was born like 2 weeks ago. That way I can get 2 sets of gifts. Be jealous. That's right. And also shout out to my friend, Jen Mason. Okay, Jennifer Mason, who's just fantastic. I've known her since we were kids. You know, as Drake would say, that's my real friend. That's right. That's my real friend, Jennifer. Jen, love you. Shout out. Happy birthday. Please stop cussing people out online. Okay. If you do that, maybe I'll have John Cena send you a message saying happy birthday. You never know. That's right. So, and everybody else, happy birthday to you. I know Kim Artlip from Ignite Wrestling. She celebrated her birthday recently as well. Good stuff there. It's just, hey, it's a joyous time of year, man. Joyous time of year. So once again, let me just jump right into this because this is a crazy interview with a very young and impressionable and controversial at the time, Conrad Thompson. Check this out and I'll be right back.
So, Conrad, you deal with the man, Ric Flair. You're his co-host, and you also co-host another show.
Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard.
That's right. So you guys are going to get into wrestling, and that's usually what happens with these interviews. But I have to get something out of the way first and foremost because this is my time to get a little payback for the nice gift I got to.
Here we go.
You're hanging out with Ric Flair, wheeling dealing. And what is it like? Is it like an old Beatles movie where you guys are running in fast motion and the women are just screaming and running behind you? Limousines, champagne. You have to let me in on this. I just need to know.
It's exactly what you would imagine. Ric Flair is not a character. It is a real person now. It's blended into one, so there's no separation of church and state, so to speak.
Oh, awesome.
And, even at 67, he's still limousine riding and jet flying and everything else that you've heard.
Unbelievable. You know what's funny? All you got to do is watch the news, and you'll see Flair's exploits, huh?
Oh yeah. If you're familiar with a website called TMZ, they are surely familiar with Mr. Flair.
Now, do they follow you around too? Listen, because you got to get some of that residual going on there, Conrad. Is TMZ parked outside of your house right now watching you?
No, I live on a private street behind some gates. We don't allow them in here.
Oh yes, we call that the Conradison estate, right?
There you go. The Conradison. There's no paparazzi here. You can kind of chill and do what you want to do.
Nice. So let's back up for a second. First and foremost, this is Conrad Thompson, folks, the co-host of Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, and also the co-host of the Ric Flair Show with the man Ric Flair himself. But you also own a mortgage company. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my real-life gig. I own First Family Mortgage. We're based here in Huntsville, Alabama, and we have the opportunity to help some people save some money, and we'd be proud to help you save some money at onefmc.com. But if you're more of a wrestling fan, you can catch the other 2 podcasts, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and the Ric Flair Show, anywhere you enjoy podcasts.
Wow. Well, now, what is the difference between the 2 shows there, Conrad, for our listeners here? What's the difference?
Well, the Ric Flair Show is all about Ric Flair, and he's the host, and I kind of just keep us on the right track and the right train of thought, and we have typically a guest every week. Every now and again, we'll dissect an old famous match of his, or just go to Twitter and answer fan questions, but for the most part, we're actually sitting down and catching up with guys who he was up and down the road with over his 40-year career. And we just talk about all things Ric Flair. We have a little segment we call How to Be the Man, where he gives you life advice. We've got a Q&A where fans can ask questions using hashtag AskNach. We've got a voicemail of the week where fans can actually hear their own question in their own voice and their own likeness on the show. And we've got This Week in History, which is probably my favorite little segment on the show, where we actually delve into a famous moment that happened in this week in Ric's career. And we're never at a loss there because he was in the game so long. But we open up the show just to give everybody Ric's kind of quick hit opinions on what's in the news for all things wrestling, and we call that the Figure 4 Top Stories. So it's a true formatted show, but it's all about the Nature Boy. And if you're into it, RicFlairShow.com is where you can find it.
And what about the other show?
The other show has blown up, way bigger than I ever imagined. Bruce Pritchard portrayed a character in the late 80s on WWF television called Brother Love.
I love you.
There you go. And then he was behind the scenes and kind of in Vince McMahon's inner circle for more than 2 decades. And he had a stint prior to that in Houston wrestling, working for Paul Bosch. And then post-WWE, he did a lot with TNA for a handful of years. So he's been in every facet of the business, behind the camera, on camera, and everywhere in between. He's been office, he's been talent, he's been everything. And we actually break down one particular piece of business or moment in time or angle or show or whatever fans vote on. It's probably the most interactive podcast around of its type. We put up a poll over the weekend, let fans kind of vote on what they want to hear, and then whatever wins, we cover in very great detail from start to finish every Friday. And those shows usually run a lot longer than a traditional podcast. They'll be 2 or 3 hours because we get into excruciating detail of all things WWF.
You know what's interesting about the Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard? I had my bodyguard sit down and try to listen to an episode with me, and one of the main things she said to me was, you really have to be into wrestling to understand what they're talking about. And I said, you know something, that's a great point, but people love it.
Yeah, it's very niche, and we kind of joke about it all the time that, we wouldn't imagine that it would be this over. I'm a mortgage guy. I've never been in the business at all. I never will be. I'm not one of the boys. I don't have any experience in the business. And Brother Love, somehow the mortgage guy and Brother Love are over in podcast land, but it's because of our real-life friendship and our love for the business, and it is very inside baseball, so to speak, compared to Rick's show, which is mostly just stories about traveling up and down the road and having a party.
That's right.
So I'm just curious because I'm sort of the outside baseball guy too, and Duke is the professional beyond professionals in this sphere. How do you get connected with these guys? How do you get connected with Rick initially, and then Brother Love? And tell us about that. I find that kind of interesting.
Well, I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and Rick had recently relocated after his son passed away from Charlotte, North Carolina, down to Atlanta, Georgia. He was dating a woman from there, and she has small children, and so she was in a position where because of a custody situation, she couldn't just leave. So he moved to Atlanta. I had a mutual friend that I had become friendly with and acquainted with, and he introduced us, and we hit it off. And we actually met at an appearance and then hit it off ever since, traded numbers, and just through that common friendship that we had. And we also knew other people. I had ran into J.J. Dillon and Jim Cornette and made friends with those guys through some of my friends in Tennessee. So one thing leads to another, and once you're friends with Rick, everybody knows Rick. And one of those people who know Rick is Bruce Pritchard. So I met Bruce, and Rick had, quote-unquote, put me over really big to Bruce. So we actually wound up communicating a little bit by email and text message and then phone, and then eventually I talked him into doing a podcast, and he wanted nothing to do with it, but hearing some of his, ability to tell a story and spin some yarn, I knew this would be something that fans would dig. So, with a lot of luck and a little bit of preparation, here we are.
Yeah. So, is the podcast? Do you get Ric Flair in a bottle? Is it you pushing him to do the podcast, which sort of catapults this whole thing? Just because it's like lightning, right? It's like lightning in a bottle, and.
With Rick wasn't necessarily waiting on me to push him. Rick had a couple of different offers from the big players in the category, and they were approaching his agent about doing it, and he wasn't really sure how you got paid on it or how any of that worked. So in 2013, he kind of poo-pooed the idea, but they eventually twisted his arm and talked him into it, and we got going.
Nice.
And when it finally, started to kind of take off as far as he was getting comfortable with it and having a good time with it, CBS Radio started to have some issues on their side, and they decided they maybe wanted to get out of the radio business completely, and that's who owned the first platform.
Sure.
So then once that thing kind of went away, we decided, hey, you know what, let's just make a run of it on our own, and that was me pushing Rick to say, we can do the better job of this just on our own without trying to fit into someone else's format. Let me take a stab at formatting a show and laying it out and see what we can put together. And that has proven to be successful. Rick's busier than ever, even at 67 years old. So it is a little difficult to get him to be pinned down for a little bit long enough to do it. But he has a good time once we get going.
Yeah, maybe once eventually get him like a pair of Google glasses and then just do a live feed just 24 hours a day.
Nice.
That make your job a lot easier, I think.
I don't know that the world is ready for a live Ric Flair 24/7.
You heard it here first, though.
I know. We're going to put that out there. Now, listen, Conrad, you're a guy who has developed a reputation of not only being very prepared when you're doing your shows, but you have some pretty tough questions. You know, how do people react when you start throwing things out there the way that you do on your show?
Well, I don't tiptoe around with Bruce because Bruce is my real life friend, and I know that when our show first started, people assumed that we just hated each other. But we may get a little hot at each other when we're taping. But all fair, Bruce and I are very, very good friends, and because of that, he understands when I'm asking questions and I'm beating him up. I'm doing it to make the show entertaining and to get a real answer, and it's what fans want to hear. He doesn't take it personally. When I'm on with one of Rick's friends and it's a guest of Rick's, we would have talked before we went on the air about whether or not there was something they did or didn't want to talk about, and assure them that, hey, if there's something you don't want us to ask about, we won't. Almost never do they have something that they don't want us to touch on unless it's something legal that they know that is pending and they don't want to jeopardize the case or whatever, which totally makes sense. But outside of that, no, I just try to be careful with the way I'm phrasing it, and I'll say things like, the internet folklore would have you believe, and the rumors online are. So then it's not me saying, hey, you did this, because I wasn't there. I don't know that he did or didn't. And I think the person who handled that the best was Eric Bischoff on our old Woo Nation show on Play.it. We actually had such a good time with his show that we split it up into two. We did more than 3 hours worth of content with Eric, and Eric took it all very, very well in great stride. And I just thought he did a phenomenal job handling that because I did have some kind of pointed questions, but I managed to phrase them in a way where it wasn't necessarily something he could be offended with me personally about.
Well, since you're a guy that likes to ask pointed questions, we're gonna twist this around for a second here. Who have you really pissed off with some of the questions or even formats that you've had on your show? Has anyone really gotten hot at you over anything?
Not necessarily. We have gotten a little bit of pushback on Pritchard's show in the last couple of months. We didn't get the nicest messages from some folks at TNA, and we didn't get the nicest correspondence from the office of WWE recently about one of our episodes that maybe in hindsight we maybe used a little poor judgment on by revealing too much. But that's really based on us not understanding the scale of our show all the way. And, in one of the episodes, we quoted something that maybe we shouldn't have quoted that not a lot of people have read, that we just assumed was out there, and a lot of people had already read it. Well, it turns out not that many people had read it. So when they heard it from us, they were hearing it for the very first time.
Oh, no.
And it was very bothersome and troublesome to several folks. And before you know it, not in terms of pissing anybody off, we hurt some folks' feelings, and I regret that. And if I had that to do over again, I would. But now I will approach things with the understanding that, to use a wrestling analogy, if it happens in a National Guard armory somewhere in Indiana, maybe nobody really knows about it. If it happens on Monday Night Raw, everyone knows about it. And our medium has quickly grown with that show to be a really, really widely listened to product, and it is a megaphone for these little tidbits of information. So maybe we should keep that in mind in the future, and I will.
Now, that's an interesting point you make, and I come from a media background, too, where you sort of have this sensitivity, but also you say, well, it's been published, we're talking about news, this is an item. What do you think, social media now take this, can take something and run with it and potentially distort to some extent, or maybe overblow a reaction. I'm just curious how you guys have approached that in dealing with sort of more delicate issues, so to speak.
Well, I'm not a broadcast professional. I'm a mortgage guy. This is straight up copy, so.
You're learning quick, though. I mean, this is a sharp learning curve for you.
Yeah, and so I feel like I've been maybe unfairly judged on some of this stuff, where in hindsight, yeah, maybe I displayed some poor judgment. But it wasn't for lack of being inconsiderate or whatever. Right. It was just, I just assumed this stuff's out there. I didn't realize that was maybe not always the case.
Well, yeah, I guess you have to go on an assumption that if something is in a newspaper, if it's on television, be it local or national, or if it's published in a book, it's sort of committed to the ether. It's out there, right? So, it might be a little unfair to judge people based 100% on, well, I didn't get that. I didn't see that yet. And now I can't believe you talked about that. That's a little bit, and that's why I say about the social media, it's almost like that little thing can now be the center focus rather than what you were actually talking about or any point you were trying to actually make.
No, I've experienced that a dozen times. 20 minutes ago, I had it, and it was in reference to a TNA episode.
Oh, no.
Where someone referenced something that there was a rumor that we shot down specifically and said, no, that didn't happen. That's just internet BS, rumor, and innuendo, as we like to say on the show. But then it's repeated as, well, Conrad and Bruce said, no, we didn't. We didn't confirm that. Now, we did address the rumors, and that's my thing on the show. I'm not going to shy away from a rumor, and if that makes me a bad guy, then, oh well. But the name of the show is something to wrestle with. That's the format. It's point and counterpoint, and our big thing on the show is correcting those rumors and innuendo that so many people have just started to take and accept as fact when really they're not. And so when something out there we know is misinformation, no matter how salacious, if we can correct it, we want to. And in this particular item, we're instead taken to task about, well, you said so-and-so on a casting couch. No, we shot that rumor down.
Wow.
And it wasn't true.
And you really shot that rumor down. Just for the record there, you guys absolutely, Bruce 100% said, I was never privy to that, heard rumors, but as far as I know, it's not true.
So I don't know how we could be taken to task there, but I guess that we're supposed to instead just not mention it. Well, that makes our show fake, and it makes it homogenized and purified like everything else. And I'm not going to do that. We're going to talk about what really happened, and we're also going to talk about what really didn't happen. And there's not going to be parts of the story we just leave out because, we don't want to get anyone in trouble, or we want to, not exchange pleasantries. We're not burying anyone. Now, Bruce has. Let's be clear about that. He's not a big fan of Jerry Jarrett and maybe Terry Taylor and a few others. But I'm not in the business. I don't know these people. I'm not going to bury them. I may say, hey, they showed poor judgment here. Can you believe that she did this or she wrote this or whatever? But that would be something that I had firsthand knowledge of. But the rumor and innuendo, I'm never going to say, well, here's what happened because I read it. That's just silly.
Well, now, Conrad, tell us the truth there. Does Bruce and Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, do they really have any kind of heat between each other, or is this just a gimmick going on there?
100% shoot. They have gotten along at different points. Bruce does take great issue with people who weren't there and weren't in the business reporting things as facts that he knows is not a fact. And whenever he, thinks about it or gets wound up about it, he gets pretty fired up. And Meltzer defends what he has heard as absolute fact, and neither one of them are ever, in my opinion, 100% right. There's that old thing where, there's my version and there's your version, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, and I think that's the case on most of this stuff. But what they wind up disagreeing about is usually silly stuff that doesn't matter, like, what was the paid attendance of the Royal Rumble?
I know. What's so ridiculous.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so ridiculous.
What I find amazing, though, is just to sort of finish up this topic, I think, before we beat a dead horse, truly. People who are working in this industry, a very vast industry, with a lot of people watching and a lot of people commenting on, and even years ago when it wasn't quite as big and as scrutinized, if you're committing indiscretions and now 15, 17, 18 people know about it, or you're just, you're living your life sort of your private life in a public kind of way, and then now you're upset because people are still talking about it, I don't know, it's on record. It happened. So I feel like, like you said, you're reporting it as news, you're talking about it, you're not talking about rumor, you're sort of analyzing what has happened in relation to maybe what's going on now or however you guys put it together. And I think that, this whole thing of things spinning out of control is a bit silly.
Yeah. And you know what else is silly? Hold on. Conrad, I gotta pick a bone with you on something here, pal. We're going to get real serious for a second. I heard you say publicly that people that you talk to, okay, when you ask them why they don't like Roman Reigns, they can't give you an answer. Now look, this is the Duke talking here. Come on. Okay? Everybody knows that Roman Reigns is a punk. He's no good.
Here we go.
He needs to get rid of the contract, get out of this business, and get out of my life. So I want to know from you, Conrad, why did you create this rumor that people don't know why they don't like Roman Reigns? What's going on with that, pal?
You have not said one reason why you don't like him.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Welcome to my life every week.
Yeah.
I just got to listen to him pontificate about nonsense.
Let me tell you why I don't like Roman Reigns. First of all, the guy Joe, I know he's a nice guy, and he comes from a great family and all that stuff. So, hey, this is all within the context of the character. So everyone out there, Roman Reigns, please don't beat me up. I don't want any problems with you. I can run faster than you anyway, but besides the point. But seriously here you have a guy, big, handsome guy, muscles, the whole 9 yards, right? They should have this guy destroy everybody and not give a damn about it. I mean, just be the most dastardly, ridiculous heel that you've ever seen. If you allow the guy to be that, it wouldn't take long for the fans to just cheer him on because, hey, guess what? This guy is the man. He can beat up everybody. He can do whatever he wants, and he can look good doing it. We can't help but cheer for the guy. But instead, they want to shove him down our throats as a baby face, and that's why it just doesn't make sense. So that's why I don't like Roman Reigns, the character, because it has more to do with the way the company is pushing him. Let him be who he is. He's an arrogant jerk. Let him be that. And let him beat up everybody, take your girlfriend, go home with her, and say, hey, yeah, I did that. And you know something? Just like how it happened with Ric Flair. We'll end up cheering him in the end anyway. There you go.
Well, I'm not, fundamentally, and this is maybe where we'll agree to disagree, I think wrestling is for kids, and it's always been that way. And if it wasn't that way, they wouldn't sell them on so many lunch boxes and toy-sized stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I understand that they respond to a guy like Roman Reigns because he's wearing kind of, G.I. Joe type gear, and he is a big dude, and he does have cool tattoos, and he does do a lot of power moves, and yada, yada, yada. So I'm okay with it from all that standpoint, but I feel like guys or fans our age, mine and your age, kind of get into booing John Cena and Roman Reigns because it's the cool thing to do. And we're not necessarily booing them as performers. We're booing the creative, or we're booing a booking decision. And I don't think that's fair to the guys individually. I think you can appreciate someone's performance even though you don't necessarily, really like the way they're being booked. Because it's not his call whether he wins or loses. And despite what everyone on the Internet says when they say, oh, his promos suck, he didn't write them. He doesn't have the freedom to go say what he wants to say. He's given a sheet of paper, and he's given 3 hours to memorize it. Now go do it. So that's the life that he's got, and he's a hardworking dude like everybody else, and he couldn't be cooler in real life. And only in the more recent months have we seen the real personality of the Usos come through now that they're heels.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew that existed when I met them years ago with Rick, and just hanging out. Those guys are just dripping charisma as natural heels and just young, brash, abrasive dudes. They just drip charisma, and I think Roman Reigns could be in the same position. However, I'm not going to boo him in the meantime when I know he's working hard, he's doing his best, and more importantly, he's doing what's asked of him. I'm not going to boo the creative for that.
Well, I appreciate you being a nice guy, not booing the creative or him for that. I will boo double just so we can cover you and cover me, because I'm telling you right now, at least somebody's giving him a reaction, which, the worst thing you can do to any performer is not give a damn, period. But this guy's he's got to start being a jerk and beating people up and all that. We saw little shades of it with his feud with Rusev, where he literally beats up the guy in front of his wife and makes fun of him every week and all that stuff. That's not babyface stuff. But yet they still try to present it as if he's a babyface doing these things.
Well, but at the same time, Stone Cold did all that too. So I don't understand the difference. Stone Cold's flipping everybody off and giving stoners to the commissioner and the owner and pouring beer on them. And
Donald Trump.
But people cheer it. And so I just think the business is a little different now, and I can appreciate the guy's hard work and know that this isn't the end for Roman Reigns. What he's doing right now is not going to be the way his career is from now on. This is a moment in time, and we'll talk about this era I mean, you look at how many different eras we've had of the major characters in wrestling, whether it was Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker or Mick Foley. We'll always have these different eras, and I think this is just one era of the many of Roman Reigns. And there'll be an opportunity for him to be a heel, but that decision will be made based on dollars and cents. And as long as he's selling merchandise and as long as he's selling T-shirts in a big way, that change is not coming anytime soon.
Speaking of change, let's put the fantasy booker cap on for a second. Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe. If you're the booker, what do you do with these guys right now?
Well, I think you have a challenge with Shinsuke because he doesn't speak English, and I know I'm going to get heat for folks for saying that, but the reality is it's hard to point to somebody who's been super over in the modern era who didn't speak English. And that, sure, they had runs, and guys will say, oh, well, the Great Muta, but what did he really do? I mean, if we really look at what the Great Muta did in WCW, and I was a big fan too, I mean, he was there at a time when they're drawing 4,000 people for a pay-per-view, and that's considered a good house. I mean, they were running pay-per-views for 2,000 people when he's there. He's not some monster draw, even though he does have natural charisma and he has a cool look and he has cool moves. I think there is still, maybe you could call it the Rust Belt or the Bible Belt or whatever area, the Midwest, wherever you want to say, there's a section of America that needs to hear from you. And there's even an expression in the business, talk them into the seats. I just don't see that with him unless they pair him with a badass manager. Now, paired with someone like a Paul Heyman, I think it could work wonderfully. There's probably a half a dozen guys who could be his mouthpiece and do a phenomenal job for him. And I know he speaks English, and I know he didn't need it anywhere else, and he doesn't need it in NXT, but nobody's watching NXT. That's just the reality. That show's running at a loss. If you're going to be a big, money player, you've got to have someone get people emotionally invested. And they're not going to do that because you have cool music, a cool jacket, and cool moves. That's just not going to happen.
So what about Samoa Joe?
I think Samoa Joe got a bum rap on the whole Tyson Kidd injury. Tyson Kidd is a big listener to the show, and I would consider him a big supporter of ours, and I hope that something miraculous happens and he's able to return. But I think Samoa Joe would have already been on the main roster had it not been for that injury. I think there may, whether it's right or not right or fair or not fair, I think there might still be some questions about him because of that. And obviously it was an accident. I don't think anybody would ever intentionally want anyone else to be injured, at least in that business. So I think that's maybe what stalled him in NXT, but I do think he'll get an opportunity. I don't think there is any sort of fat-shaming sort of Vince McMahon persona that we've heard in the past based on the success that we've seen with guys in more recent years, whether it's a Bray Wyatt, who's a thicker guy, or a half a dozen others who have done well, who previously you would have thought, oh, he's got no shot there. So I think Samoa Joe could still be a player there. I just think he's got to navigate through that process with the Tyson Kidd injury a little bit.
Speaking of players, are we seeing the best feud in wrestling right now with Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair?
I don't know how you could argue that it's not the best female. It certainly is in history. I don't know that it's the best feud overall ever, or currently, but it's certainly the best female one in history, and I don't think it's even debatable. I think it'll be, when people look back and they talk about Flair Steamboat, or they talk about Macho Man Steamboat, or they talk about a handful of those matches that people really, really remember. I think in the years to come, maybe a generation from now, people will talk about Charlotte and Sasha in a Flair Steamboat type of way because it was the first time you saw women really get an opportunity to do all this stuff.
Agreed. And if you could suggest any match, if somebody wants to know when Conrad Thompson thinks about pro wrestling, what's the one match that he can send you to be representative of, this is the sport that I love, and this is why I love it so much? What's the one match?
Man, it's hard to narrow it down to one. There's so many good ones, but one that comes to mind that I think is underrated because it happened at a downtime in the business is WrestleMania 13 with Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think their I Quit match was done perfectly. I think it's the best double turn in the history of wrestling. You had some interesting stuff there because there's brawling in the crowd. There is some technical wrestling. They do use some weapons. There is some blood. Ken Shamrock's the referee, but the double turn and what it represented to take a heel like Stone Cold and make him babyface, and to take this stalwart babyface and Bret Hart and make him a heel and do it so masterfully inside of one match, I think it's something that really stands the test of time, even 20 years later. And I would recommend everybody watch it if they haven't.
Wow, that's a great one. Now, recently you encouraged Ric Flair to watch his match with Big Van Vader, and he responded that he had not seen that match literally since he was in it. How did he respond to that?
Well, a few years ago when he was here at Con Radisson, I asked if we could watch one of his old matches with Steamboat, and he joked that he had never seen them. So he never saw his 89 string of matches that everybody still talks about, the match in Nashville, the match in Chicago, the match in New Orleans. He never saw those. He said, "Why would I watch it? I was there." I said, "Well, it might be cool. Let's just watch." So we watched one, and he said, "Hey, let's watch the next one." I used to be pretty damn good. And so just to watch the match with him and be able to kind of get his commentary on what he was thinking and what was going on and who was where and why, it was very fascinating to me. And I would love to watch that match with him and Vader from Starrcade 93, because I think the overall story from that show, not just the match, but the skits that led up to it that are still on that pay-per-view if you go watch it on the network, where Mean Gene goes to his house, he says goodbye to his family. I mean, it's almost as if, he's headed off to slaughter. He's being thrown to the lion's den, and he's kissing his family goodbye. I mean, this is a big emotional deal, and they really did a great job of presenting it as a phenomenal story, where even if you're not really a wrestling fan, so to speak, you could get behind that story.
That's great.
Very emotional, too. And that's a great call out there. I
love how Rick is sort of like the Paul Newman of wrestling. He doesn't watch his own matches. I've never seen him. Never seen him. I was there. I don't need to know about it. So Conrad, we do this little kind of bit in the show just for our own amusement, the Ric Flair story of the week. We don't even have any kind of funny music to go with it or anything. And I was thinking, who better to maybe, instead of doing our own bit this week, can you give us something? I know you got to keep the best gold for your own show. I know you got to do that. But can you give us a little something, a little Ric Flair story that we can all, maybe pine about having the Ric Flair lifestyle, and we can live vicariously through you and him for just a few moments?
Well, here's a random one. We were at a hotel. He had done a Waiting for Wishes charity a few years ago in Nashville for Kevin Carter. It was at the Palm Restaurant at the corner of Broadway and 5th. Directly across from the Bridgestone Arena, and it's almost attached to the Hilton Hotel. So he's up there doing that. I have an office in Nashville, so I just camped out. I did a little Waiting for Wishes deal. We did some drinks, yada, yada. The next day, we're hanging out in the lobby, getting ready to head our separate ways, and he's hopping a plane to go somewhere. I'm just going to drive back down to Huntsville. And as we're waiting, a black SUV pulls up, and the window rolls down, and a guy starts yelling. And so we just assume they're not talking to us. And so then eventually the guy says, "Ric Flair, are you too good to talk to me?" And he looks, and Rick looks back at me and looks back at the car and then looks back at me and says, "Is that Little Richard?" And to my surprise, it is. Richard wanted to say hello to Ric Flair and asked Ric Flair for a picture and an autograph, and gave him a little pamphlet, and they had a little moment together, and it was one of the most surreal things ever. To walk out the downtown Nashville Hilton with the Nature Boy Ric Flair and Little Richard.
Oh, my God.
What are the odds of that? Only in Ric Flair's life does that happen.
Well, yeah, that he got flagged down. It wasn't like they bumped into each other walking through the lobby. Yeah. A car pulled over. He had to tell his driver, stop, stop, stop. That's Ric Flair. I got to yell at him.
Yeah, that's real.
And that's the type of respect that the Nature Boy commands all over the world. My goodness. Listen, Conrad, if fans want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can reach out to you online and what have you there?
I have to be the most interactive wrestling podcast host on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Hey, it's Conrad. You can certainly check out my mortgage company at 1fmc.com. But the shows are on MLWradio.com, and they're RicFlairShow.com or Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. You can catch them on TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes. man, anywhere you enjoy your podcast, SoundCloud, whatever, they're all there. Ric Flair Show, something to wrestle with. If you're a wrestling fan, there's something for everybody, and I would appreciate if you would go ahead and hit the subscribe button on both of those.
Okay, folks, you've got Susan Tex Green here, one of the only women to beat the Fabulous Moolah. Look in the record books, you'll see me. I love wrestling with the Duke. Look forward to seeing all y'all, and be with La Alamo.
So as you heard there, it was an interesting time, right? Interesting time back then. That was 2016. Goodness gracious, almost 5 years ago, we had that conversation with Conrad Thompson. So he recovered from some of that controversy, and he's moved on to great heights there. Good guy. Appreciate him. Shout out Conrad and the family there. And, you know, he married into the Flair family, which I'm still pissed at Conrad over that, but that's another story. How dare you? I should have been the one to find a way. You could at least have one of them adopt me, Conrad. Okay? But we won't even get into that. Okay. Moving on. One of the things that we used to do, especially as the show began, was something called Run the Ropes, where I'd go over the top stories in the world of professional wrestling. And there was a bell and all kinds of crazy stuff that people ended up getting annoyed with. But for nostalgia purposes, I'm going to play a little clip from Run the Ropes, and then we're going to get into the craziest interview I've ever done with the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, including some analysis afterwards as well. So check this out.
You opened the show talking about The Rock.
Yes.
And The Rock comes from a famous wrestling family.
Sure.
His grandfather, was it? Or father?
Yeah, his grandfather and his father.
And they're Samoan.
Yes. Well, his father is actually a Canadian black man. But his grandfather has the Samoan heritage. Samoan.
Yes. And the Samoans are big in wrestling. I mean, that's a contingent that's been
family
for a long time.
Yep.
So, in our current world that we're living in, the United States ambassador to Samoa put his foot in his mouth because he's a dope. And what I'm worried about is I don't want to ruin the ties that we have with wrestling with the wonderful country and the people of Samoa.
Well, that's very important.
I don't want to embarrass. I'm embarrassed as an American, that we sent the dolt Scott Brown, who used to be a Massachusetts state senator. I'm sorry, he's not a state senator. He was one of the senators, U.S. senator from the state of Massachusetts.
Sure.
He tried to carpetbag his way into New Hampshire. That didn't work.
Hey.
Then he disappeared to do something else. He became a Trump supporter. And so what did Trump do? Shipped him off to the South Seas.
That's right. Get away from me. That's what he said to me. Listen,
even if Trump can't stand, if Trump sends you to the South Pacific, that's how bad of a person you are.
Full disclosure, I have spent time with Scott Brown.
I'm sorry to hear it.
He has always been nothing but cordial and respectful. His lovely wife, Gail, she gives me a hug. Very nice lady as well.
She was a broadcaster here.
She sure was. She sure was. So, nice people. I got to be honest, though. Scotty, I don't know about the folks you're hanging out with lately. You got you saying crazy things out there.
You can tell me Scott Brown's a nice guy.
I tell you this all the time.
Whatever. The point is, you are judged by the friends you keep.
Sure.
And this guy he would sell his own mother down the river if it got him elected to some office where he could say he had something he was doing.
I like Scotty.
I can't believe you do. So anyway, what happened was he's at a state dinner in Samoa. He's the United States ambassador to Samoa. Okay,
Scotty.
He's at a state dinner, and he sent, and I'm trying to, I don't know if there's an actual quote, but there are complaints came out that he said to some of the, I believe, wait staff at this event that they should, here we go, that they looked really beautiful and that they should trade on their looks, basically, is what he was trying to say. That they're too good looking to do what they're doing, whatever.
To have a real job.
Right, exactly. And so this was at a Peace Corps dinner. By the way, let's add another layer in this. They're at a dinner to promote the Peace Corps, which is one of the few good things left in the world. And this dope wanders in there.
Stop it.
And it makes a fool not only of himself once again, but now of me and of you because he's representing the United States.
He was giving expert advice because he
advice?
Listen.
You have to be an expert on something other than trying to win elections, and he's only moderately successful at that.
He put himself through college using his looks. He took the pictures. Remember the pictures?
All right, he was a Playgirl.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
He was in Playgirl.
Okay.
So what that makes him... All right, but here's the thing. Do you wander into your local coffee shop and tell the barista, hey, you're good looking, toots. You should get the hell out of here. You're too pretty to be here.
No.
I
just want my coffee.
Here's my thing. Where I believe that Samoa, I'm pretty sure, has the internet and television like the rest of the world.
Sure.
Has Scott Brown not been paying attention to what's going on in the world, what women have been struggling with lately, and all the talk that's going on about things that you're not supposed to do to other people because it's cruel and it's wrong? And this is a United States ambassador? It's disgusting. And he should be put... Those fine people of Samoa, they're a seafaring folk, South Pacific. They should get the worst canoe they have and push him out to sea.
Stop it right
and
now.
just let him go.
I like
Because
Scott.
you know what? I would be totally behind that, and I could get a petition started, and I just might do it.
Listen, Scotty, you need to hang out with the Duke more, and I'll keep you out of that
Do
stuff.
not address him from my show.
I like Scotty.
No, please.
Scotty, cut the crap, all right? Seriously, cut the crap,
cut the
Scotty.
crap. Cut the crap and go away. Just
Stop it.
go away.
Leave him alone. Run the ropes. You spend too much time giving people a hard time on the show. You need to be nicer.
Hard time. First of all, it's a public person. Stop saying stupid crap. Because now the inspector. Can I just say, this is just not me raging. There's an actual formal investigation. by the Inspector General's office.
He's probably going to lose that ambassadorship. There's no two
here's
ways
the thing.
about it.
What else has he got going on?
Well, you
start
Brown.
having all these losses.
His daughter is a famous singer. Leave him alone.
Famous?
She's
Let's
famous.
not get famous. All right.
Hey,
Let's not go.
You leave Ayla Brown alone.
I don't know.
I like her.
I mean, listen, she was trading on her looks, and it didn't go too far for her.
Don't do that.
He should stop giving out horrible advice to other people because he should get his own house in order.
Scotty, cut the crap.
Scott Brown.
All right, let's move. Let's get back to wrestling here. Jesus,
I was talking about the fine people of Samoa.
Well, speaking of Samoa, Nia Jax teases a return.
Oh boy!
We talked about it last week, folks. How Nia Jax took a leave of absence.
Yeah, and have we gotten to the bottom of this?
Well, stay out of this.
No, have we gotten to the bottom? What was the what was the official word given as to
There's
why?
no official word.
Oh, really?
There's no official
Interesting.
word.
That's funny.
So, on Twitter, Nia Jax alluded to being at Survivor Series to, quote, settle the score in defense of the Raw team. So, hey, look, Nia, get back in the ring. Let's get back to doing what you do best, which is wrestle. Enough of the other nonsense. I don't know what your problem is.
Do you know why she said she's coming back? Do you know why she said she's coming back?
Well, she's coming back because she misses her checks and what have you. I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Well,
but,
I think that she might have been leveraged into it.
Well,
I think it's like I think your quote unquote friend said no more of this leave of absence. This is where he's trying to push back, which is all part of his much larger scheme that we talked about last week.
Oh, really? Well, I don't know about any of that stuff. All I know is, look, Nia Jax, we welcome you back. Get in the ring, do what you do best. Survivor Series, everyone will be happy to see you back, and that's really the end of it. Jeff Jarrett checks into rehab. Boy, I'll tell you, folks, this has been a whirlwind right here.
All right, can you again? I've been seeing all these posts, and why do I care about Jeff Jarrett?
Well, keep in mind, I mean, he was a big star in the USWA, and he was also a star in the WWE, WCW, but he was the one who created TNA. He and his father.
Oh, right. Okay.
So they created TNA. They found some investors who ended up pushing him out.
Was one of those the idiot Billy Corgan?
No, not yet.
Okay, that later on.
Then they brought him back, then pushed him out again. Then the whole Billy Corgan thing happened, and et cetera, et cetera. Then he gets brought back again. Like at least 3 times he's brought back to his own company. And then he gets pushed out again, saying that, his behavior is just unacceptable. Well, now we find out that he got checked into rehab.
Well, there you go.
So, allegedly, last weekend in Canada, he was passed out, and then he was demanding to work when he woke up, and he was unsafe, basically.
It sounds fairly unsafe.
So, there's some problems there. But listen to this, though. The WWE, to their credit, Jeff Jarrett's wife, Karen, reached out to them, and they assisted in getting him into the facility.
That is actually impressive because they are a heartless company,
well,
and led by a
heartless
man. Well, so the fact that they had a little compassion for this woman and her family.
They offer that for all wrestlers, by the way, just so you know.
I don't know.
They will put you through rehab if you're a wrestler. They'll do it.
You know what I'm going to need, and you know what these wrestlers are going to need? Rehab from dealing with Vince. What about that? What about the stress and the PTSD from working with Vince McMahon? Who's covering that rehab?
He's a good guy.
Yeah,
you don't
good.
Need
in what universe is he a good guy?
Stop it. Kurt Angle returns to the ring. Huh. Jeez. Now, here's what's interesting. Karen used to be Kurt Angle's wife, by the way, and now she's Jeff Jarrett's wife. Don't try to figure it out. That's another story altogether.
I really don't care. I care almost as much as about Dancing with the Stars scores.
Well, listen, Nikki Bell is doing a good job. But that's right, folks. As a result of the Raw roster coming down with illnesses, being injured, or just plan on walking out, Kurt Angle took part in the main event at the TLC pay-per-view this past Sunday. He teamed up with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. They defeated The Miz, Braun Strowman, The Bar, Kane, everybody. They took on everybody, basically. But, man, I'll tell you what. It was great to see Kurt Angle back in the ring.
Isn't he a little fragile?
Well,
is he borderline to not be doing this anymore, though?
His bump card is pretty full.
So
here was the other issue, though. He battled addiction, which is what got him pushed out of the WWE over a decade ago. And he just recently was allowed back in. But the idea was not for him to necessarily wrestle. He has an on-air commissioner role or something like that. But they had to do this because everyone was sick. The meningitis and all that other nonsense.
The quote-unquote meningitis.
Well, okay.
I just think that, boy, I'm sure he wanted to do it.
Sure, of course he does.
I have a hard time supporting potentially making someone a vegetable. I think you and Vince don't care. Even though you say you love these guys, you really want them to go out there and potentially get hurt. And,
he was living his dreams. He was living his dreams.
That's fine by him, but you know what? I'm not going to encourage it. And you can do whatever you want because you're heartless.
I don't want to crush anybody's dreams. Triple H returns to the ring.
What about my dreams of not having to sit here every week?
Listen, we're going to talk about your favorite Triple H. Okay? Because not only did he return to the ring.
Another idiot.
In Santiago, Chile, but he danced with the New Day. He twerked. Oh my God. This is big news everywhere. Everyone covered this. He twerked.
This is what's wrong. You were having a conversation earlier today on social media with somebody about how the WWE is great because they're making so much money.
More money than they've ever made. More money than ever. Ever.
Money.
You hear that, Connor? Ever.
Money is not everything.
Sure it is.
No, it's not. Because everything. You know why it's not everything?
Why?
Because of what you just effing read. How stupid. You just told me that Triple H was twerking.
He was twerking.
And that's supposed to be content?
He dropped it like it's hot.
Get the hell out of here. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I mean, and you say a lot of stupid stuff, and the WWE does a lot of stupid stuff. How about Triple H goes away, and they focus on, I don't know, new wrestlers that are good at the job? How about that? Would that be too hard?
You're jealous because you can't twerk like Triple H.
I'm not jealous. He's got to go to bed next to that wife of his every night, and I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody.
Listen, stop it. You see what I got to put up with this guy here? It's unbelievable, folks. The number one story in the world of professional wrestling is Under Siege.
The movie with what's his name?
I'm not talking about Steven Seagal.
Thank God, because that guy's a creep. Speaking of creep,
yeah.
There's a lot of stories about him wearing kimonos and doing very bad things.
I don't really understand them. I don't even want to understand them. I'm staying out of that one. But I'm talking about the SmackDown roster invading Raw and attacking those that were left. Because, people are sick or not there or whatever.
How many times are you going to say it?
Well, because it happened. What do you want me to do? That was the big deal there.
It's part of it. It's all part of it. You're falling for it. You're falling for it.
Fine. Kayfabe is alive. Fine. But this is the build-up to Survivor Series where we're going to have roster versus roster, both the males and the females. It's pretty awesome.
All right.
I like
Fine.
I like it.
But if you're going to do it the right way, which somehow some conflated BS and malarkey is going to come in there. And
you're not going to like this part.
Exactly. How did I know? How did I know? I was getting ahead of myself.
See? Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle, who had a great match with each other years ago. Where now listen
Shane
to this.
McMahon should never be wrestling, so I don't even believe that. Again, BS. But go ahead.
Kurt Angle, because he's an Olympic gold medalist, he's really good at doing throws and things of that nature, belly to belly suplexes and what have you. So he was suplexing Shane McMahon. He was supposed to do it through glass, sugar glass, but they painted it.
All right.
So when they painted it, it hardened.
Right.
So when Angle threw him through the glass the first time, didn't break. Dropped Shane on his head. Picked him up, did it again. I think it took like 2 or 3 attempts before the glass finally broke.
That's actually pretty funny.
Almost killed the guy.
That's even funnier.
So it looks like they're going to relive that, basically.
Will they relive him throwing him through 3 times? And
Possibly.
Otherwise, why bother?
I know, yeah.
Otherwise,
Shane's going to jump off something again because that's what Vince
Well, again,
wants
this
him
is
to do.
just... Right, he's trying to get his own kid killed because he doesn't want to give his company to anybody.
No,
and this, again, it ties into what I was saying
he's
last
putting his
week.
kid through the same thing that everybody else has to go
Except for him.
Well, Vince wrestles, man. He's been beat up.
He should be beat up. He doesn't have to be, though. How about just hire the best people to do the job and go sit in your office and do what you're supposed to do?
Maybe
do your job and let them do theirs.
Maybe he wants to settle the score. People will give him a hard time. So get him in the ring and beat him up.
You can't do that, though. If he wants to be a real businessman, so wait, is he a real wrestler and a fake businessman? Is that how it is?
Don't be disrespectful.
Because that's sort of what it sounded like.
Don't be disrespectful, all right? You heard what I think. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm a jerk?
Yep.
Maybe something in between?
An idiot. You're the third one tonight.
Give me a break. Head over to Facebook. Head over to Twitter. Type in Duke Loves Rasslin and let me know. Up next, former NWA champion Wildfire Tommy Rich.
This is Simply Luscious, and you are listening to Duke Loves Rasslin.
Hello?
Wildfire.
Yes, Manny.
Manny Fernandez. How are you, brother?
I'm fine. Who the heck is this?
Man, this is Duke from the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast. Listen, Manny.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm going like Tommy hands me a phone out of the middle of nowhere. It's crazy. Tommy, I don't know what he's giving me. He's probably giving me a hooker or something. Yeah, you know, it's funny that Tommy's in a rush. He's got to go to Toys for Tots. Hey, this is Tommy, man. I've got to go do a Toys for Tots. Let Manny do this because he knows everything going on.
What are you guys doing? You guys hanging out together or what? What are you in the woods? What is going on here?
We're over here in Myrtle Beach hanging out. Tommy's going to go do a good thing for the community called Toys for Tots. He's getting us involved with that.
Yeah.
And I got my thing going on with my non-profit organization called Pain and Laughter for my homeless veterans.
Great.
I'm a vet myself, and I'm raising money for that through Tommy Rich's Promotions and through our Tommy Rich's School of Wrestling.
You have your own organization where you're working with homeless veterans. That's pretty interesting. There. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for the last 5 years.
Wow.
I've been doing it. I started the program out in Fresno, California, and some idiot named Lance Cardozo with Lucha Extreme ripped my foundation off for $20,000. And I got a little upset and blew his house up, so they kind of locked me up for it.
Oh, shit. What?
Wow.
Is that all?
I reminded the SWAT team that came after me after I did that I used to be UDT, and I could have blown them up if I knew they were coming, too.
Wow.
But I didn't even come.
Wow, I thought I was having a long week.
I know, this guy's serious
got the SWAT team after him.
Now, Manny, tell me this. Why is it that so many of the young guys, especially today, they still talk about how great of a mentor and a person that you are there? What is it about Manny Fernandez that resonates with so many people, even to this day?
Well, it's because I teach everything that I learned from, when I started with Murdoch and Terry Funk and Dory Funk and Mulligan, Sweet Hanson, Harley Race, a tradition of old school wrestling out of West Texas State called West Texas Style. And it just comes from all the guys from West Texas, the Bruiser Brodys, the Stan Hansons, the Tully Blanchards, even Tully, who's a coward, but, he has our style of wrestling. And, Kelly Kaninsky, Barry Windham, Tito Santana. We all learn that one style, and that's basically what I teach. It's I teach people how to wrestle. On the marquee, it says wrestling. It doesn't say Circus du Soleil or how many hoops you can jump through the elephant bath and all that good stuff. It doesn't mean squat diddly. I've been wrestling some of the youngest, great, talented guys that WWE's missing out on because these kids get in the ring with me, and they're amazed that that 63-year-old man can still go like a bat out of hell and get on there and wrestle with him. But, I've been wrestling since I was 10 years old. It's like riding a bike.
You mentioned the WWE, and Duke is going to kill me for bringing this up, but I think that Vince McMahon is totally mismanaging the WWE. You said that there's talent that's being passed over. Why do you think they're passing over talent that's good?
They're going by what the writers see. Simon Gott said it the best way. Indio's an idiot. He didn't even know that was tag team with Dusty Rhodes or who Dusty Rhodes was or stuff. I mean, that's the kind of people they got there. One of the best lines I hear, I take all my worthy students to tryouts. One thing I got with Vince, even though when Vince tried to hire me, and put horns on my head like a real raging bull. I told him to go fuck himself. My mom was I'm an idiot. So he was admired that I never came back begging for a job. I was never begging for a job. I've asked to train down at DNXT. I told him, no, thank you. I train the way I train. I don't want to be told how to train people. I train people the way I was trained, the way I was brought up. And if that don't suit you, tough.
You had a tag team with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Tell us about your time with Dusty and what your friendship with him meant.
Oh, my God. Dusty Rhodes, if I didn't have Dusty Rhodes, I would have never had a job. Everywhere, when I was sent out to Papa Territory, like when I left Dusty's wing in Florida, when they knew that I would learn, number one, because Jack and Jerry Briscoe were there, Hiro Matsuda was there, Gotch was there, Malenko was there, all the toughest shooters in the world that ever started this, man, Lutez, all the guys that stretched people and showed them that wrestling, you may call it fake, but we're not fake. You know what I'm saying? They'll show you they ain't fake. But they sent me there, and those are the people that educated me.
But Dusty protected you.
Yeah, Dusty protected. That's what I admired about Dusty. When Dusty came down after all this shooting with these guys for an hour, and they just ripped me apart, and they told Dusty and Jerry Briscoe and Eddie Graham, they go, they're right about this kid, he's tough. I said, tough? You guys whipped my ass for an hour, and you're 70-something years old. I'm tough. He goes, yeah, but you didn't quit. I went, that's one thing I will never fucking do. I will never quit anything. And that's when I met Dusty for the first time, and we hit it off, and he always protected me. He took care of me. He let me go out. He let me go to San Antonio, pop Joe Blanchard's territory. I came in, put the belt in the pop territory. Then I went to Harley race. I owe Harley so much for making me in Florida. I went into Kansas City and popped his territory. And when Dusty would reel me in and say, give your notice, kid, I need you, I'd always go back. Everywhere Dusty took the books, he'd just say, Manny, give your notice. Dusty needs you. And I gave my notice, and the man protected me. We were together for 30 years.
That's right.
30 years.
That's right.
You've been talking a lot of shoot talk. Would you say the kids today don't know what it's like to work in that environment, that a shoot today is nothing what it was like when you were really working?
Oh, God, not even a clue. I was fortunate enough that Lutez was still alive.
Oh, no. Lutez was as tough as nails, brother.
Lutez was still alive, and he taught me a lot. Lou taught me a lot. Carl Gott taught me a lot. Jeff Ports, Billy Robinson, Danny Hodge. I mean, Danny Hodge is still alive, and he's still crushing apples.
Oh, my God. He has the strongest grip in the world, Danny Hodge. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're still alive, so it's amazing that, I'm still alive. I've been shot 3 times, stabbed 8 times, flipped over to, I don't know how many car wrecks me and Barry went to Madden Flower.
So, Manny, tell us again, what's this event that's coming up with Tommy's school and what have you there? Because Wildfire Tommy Rich, I know that you've partnered up with him down there in Myrtle Beach. You guys are doing some great things down there. What's going on?
Yeah, we got the big show, the first show for East Coast Wrestling Alliance. We're starting our own wrestling alliance. We're trying to bring back old school. Tommy Wildfire Rich, one-time NWA World Champion. Austin Idol, Ricky Morton will be here, myself, Barbarian from the old WCW days.
Oh, yeah, big tough dude, brother.
And I got a bunch of good young kids that came together with me at a seminar, and they love old school. The days when wrestling was fun, when wrestling was looked at as a real deal.
That's right.
Not all this flip-flop and fly circus SLA crap.
That's right. Now, Manny, if any fans or any promoters want to get in touch with you, whether to just let you know how much they appreciate you or to book you on something, what's the best way that folks can reach you?
Best way to reach me is on Tommy Wildfire Promotions, Tommy Rich School of Wrestling. They got a private number there. If you could just Google it up. It'll say I train. I'm his trainer at the school. I train everybody there for him. And, we got a bunch of good kids coming through there, but that's the best way to get a hold of me. Or Facebook me, or message me on Facebook, or just send out messages on Messenger.
His name is the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez. Manny, we got to have you back on sometime, brother.
You too, man. I can tell people the devil don't like me, and God's not ready to get rid of me yet.
There it is. There it is.
What a guy.
I'm telling you.
What a guy.
Jeez, that was pure action.
And in all that action, he got a little ahead of himself because, there was like some roughhousing going on at the beginning of him and Tommy.
Yeah.
They forgot to give us the date of the...
Yeah, what is it? What is the date on that?
The date of the promotion is Saturday, October 28th, which is this upcoming Saturday.
Yes.
But Saturday, October 28th, and they're in Myrtle Beach, right?
Yeah, that's the X-Gym Sports Complex. That's
right.
568 George Bishop Parkway, Myrtle Beach. So, folks, you definitely got to check it out. You're going to see all the legends of wrestling there. Tommy Wildfire Rich, the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, the Rock and Roll Express, you name it. A lot of your old school guys from the NWA territory and beyond there.
You know, the Raging Bull is going to send us a nice little thank you for covering his butt there. Because if Tommy found out he forgot to promote, then he's going to be in big trouble.
Let me tell you something.
Those two guys are getting enough trouble together already.
That'd be a cage match. Those two. I'm telling you.
Speaking of cage match, I thought it was very interesting. He said a couple of things that he said. And it's funny that you hear it from an old school. It makes sense that it comes out. He said it's a shoot into a work, not a work into a shoot. And on the surface, that sounds kind of obvious, but think about it. If the idea is to make a realistic, believable contest between two people, so it has to start with a realistic contest between two people.
Absolutely.
And then you dial it down so that you don't kill anybody. You don't start throwing, pulling your punches like in an action movie and then trying to make it look more realistic. It doesn't work. And I've seen it a million times. Again, we talk to a lot of people who are just starting in the business. We get sent a lot of video clips and a lot of stuff. And a lot of times I'm going, people are learning. But I think you have to be willing to take the hit once in a while.
Sure.
In order to then learn how to dial it back rather than trying to amp it up and then really hurt yourself.
Absolutely. Well, the people who really know how to wrestle, they always say, I can tell what's going to happen by the lockup. If you got people who are ginger about doing the collar and elbow lockup, then you know that we're going in the wrong direction.
Right.
But if you have people who really get at it,
right,
you can hear that slap. They really get at it with that lockup.
Well, it's that body language. It's the contact that actually helps orchestrate
absolutely
the whole interaction.
Because then you say, wow, these two people are fighting each other, which is the point.
Right.
That's
here's
the
thing.
point.
Right. You can't have, what does it devolve into? Fighting without contact at all?
Yeah.
Right? That's if you're going to start the other way, you're never going to, it's not like you get close enough to somebody and then, you're going to have contact.
That's right.
Even if it's choreographed.
Yep.
So I thought that was very, very interesting.
This ain't Cirque du Soleil, like you said.
He ain't jumping out of an elephant's ass.
That's right.
That might have to go onto a T-shirt.
I'm telling you, I like that. I like that.
The other thing he said that I thought was really cool, he said...
When he was talking about Harley Race.
Yeah, he's working territories. He said, I went down there and I put the title on him, blah, blah, blah. And he said it in passing.
Yep.
And I said, it's funny. Most sports, you talk to athletes, we won the Stanley Cup, we won the thing. In wrestling, because it's preordained, no matter who, quote unquote, wins as part of the show for the audience, both people had to get there together.
Absolutely.
So whereas one person won the belt, the other guy equally put the belt on the other person.
Absolutely, because that person had to be somebody.
That's right.
In order to be in that position to do that.
Well, and also, no one would be interested in seeing the belt at all.
Yep.
Unless it was a good match between two people who are actively there.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very interesting thing he said. And I think it's an interesting way to look at wrestling in that, there's always this whole thing of, real versus not real. That's real.
That's real.
That's the reality of it.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that can be appreciated about it. If you're all hung up on who wins the belt, you're missing the point, which is it's very carefully put together by people who really, really know what they're doing.
Damn right.
And that is the art right there. That's the art of it.
Damn right.
So I think it was very good. I know the Bull was raging tonight.
He was raging.
He was raging.
He was definitely raging.
He was raging. But I think on those points especially, even though he didn't take the bait as much as I wanted to do on my Vince McMahon hatred, I did still learn something tonight.
Well, he did,
which is more than I can say for most times sitting with you.
He did point out the fact that he told Vince McMahon to kiss his backside.
I believe he told him to go F himself.
Yeah, that too. Which I'm not happy with you that you actually encouraged him to say that.
Boy,
all right?
Here's the thing. What I would love to have seen that happen, number one. I'd love to have seen that interaction happen.
Me.
And then, apparently later on, he wanted him to go back, and he told him, no way, I'll do my own thing. Screw. So he gave him the old 1-2 punch. And, again, listen, I don't like a bully, which is why I don't like you.
Oh,
okay? I don't like a bully
thanks.
like Vince McMahon. That is pushing people around, expects no one to stand up for them. And here's this guy, the Raging Bull, he's doing his own thing. And he's doing well at it.
But listen, I'm not going to tell Manny Fernandez, the Raging Bull, anything about what he should and shouldn't do, but I'm going to tell you, be careful what you say about my friend Vince McMahon.
All right, you don't have any friends, never mind Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon is my friend, and I don't appreciate the way you talk about him. Just be careful.
You need to stop.
Okay? I'm
you need
serious.
to stop. You
Be
need to get
careful
help.
how you talk about my friend. Folks, up next, speaking of which, the Boston Bad Boy is going to say a lot of positive things in the next segment about my friend, Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens.
No, you're going to do it because at this point, pal, you're really on thin ice.
You know, because at this point, I'm just about ready to tell you to go after yourself. So you better watch out. Be careful what you wish for.
Listen, this is what I get for putting Manny on the phone with you there. That's the real problem here.
That is literally one of the most talked about episodes, interviews, I should say. Manny Fernandez, he wasn't even supposed to be on the show. That was a Tommy Rich interview that Tommy had to go do something else, so he passed the phone to Manny, and Manny just went crazy. So, and Manny, I'm still not happy with you about what you said to my good friend Vincent Kennedy McMahon, okay? Outside, but don't beat me up. I don't want any problems with you. I will stay in the cheap seats, eating my popcorn. I will never step inside of the ring. That's right. I had a guy say to me the other day, he was like, Duke, you think you're relevant, but you're not. You're not relevant, Duke. And I had to say to them, well, listen, if I'm not relevant and you're spending all this time talking to me, what does that make you? It's all about the guests. And really, it's all about you, the listeners. It's not about me. Please. I'm just a vessel. I'm just a place that you can go to get more information about the thing that we love the most, which is pro wrestling, right? That's it. And it's not me making the news or the controversy or anything like that. It's a platform for the newsmakers to come on and explain themselves. And yeah, I'll give a little bit of analysis and what have you, but make no mistake about it. It's about the wrestlers and it's about you, the listeners. It's not about me. And anyone who thinks it's about me, it's about Vincent Kennedy McMahon, okay? This is the Vincent Kennedy McMahon show, to be honest with you. All right? This is all about him. Good, the bad, and the ugly. It's about Vince. Speaking of which, Vince, do me a favor, brother. I'm your good friend. I know you listen every week. I need you to make good with my other good friend, Big Vito Lagrasso. Just do the right thing, Vince, please. Come on. Do the right thing. Come on. If you do it, I'll tell you that your facelift looks good, okay? Come on, Vince. Do it for the Duke. That's right. That's right. So, without further ado, I just want to remind everybody, please be safe out there. Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. Wear your mask. Come on, please. Wear your mask. But enjoy yourself. Great holidays there. And next week, I got a special surprise for you. Reed and I are going to be doing something that we've never done before on this show. I've never done this before. I'm going to do a watch along. So I've put together a playlist of some of my favorite wrestling matches, and I even threw in a boxing match and an MMA match. Just crazy stuff, right? And Reed and I are going to watch these things, and we're going to provide commentary as we're watching. And you'll be able to cue it up so you can follow along as we're going to have a few beers, and we're going to do this thing, and it's probably going to be a complete train wreck, but it's going to be a good time. So, definitely tune in next week. That'll be my end of the year episode to close out 2020. Let's do a train wreck to close out 2020. Why not? Damn right. Damn right. Okay, listen. On behalf of the most irrelevant guy in the world, according to some, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. Take it away, Tony Schiavone.
Mr. Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Wrestling.